Things are heating up in Syria. I'm going to tell you what the United States probably should do and who I think is behind it. Syria has long been a very volatile place, but it's very complex. It's much more difficult to analyze than, say, Afghanistan, Iraq, even Libya, when Libya was at its worst. Because Syria is a unique dynamic. When you speak to Syrian Christians, and I have a couple of friends who were very well off in Syria, their families are physicians, they don't condemn Bashar Assad as much as you think they would, because Bashar Assad, for the most part, was a pretty secular guy. He kept Christians safe. They said before all this unrest, cities like Damascus were safe havens for their families. Now, it's not to say that Bashar Assad loved Christians. Assad is still a brutal guy. It's just that he wasn't a Muslim hardliner who persecuted them. They were able to run their medical practices, live very prosperously. On the other hand, Bashar Assad is a guy who allies with Iran and Russia, countries that really don't care about human rights and fair play in war. And that appears to have led us to where we are today. See, I believe that the gas attack in Syria was carried out by Assad. Now, a lot of conspiracy theorists are saying, well, Donald Trump said he was pulling out of Syria and there'd be no upside for Assad to do this, and this is the deep state, and this is Israel, and this is all kinds of conspiracy theories. But these people are very short-sighted. What they don't realize is that nations like Iran and like Russia want to test President Trump's resolve. These are brutal, brutal people. If they have to kill people, kill children, gas children, to check what Trump is made of, they're going to do it. They simply don't care. They see these people in the outlying areas of Syria, the Kurds, many other groups, as subhuman anyway. They couldn't care less about them. And so I do believe Bashar Assad, enabled, prodded by, I believe mostly Iran, but with a wink and a nod from Russia, launched this gas attack, A, to see what Trump would do, and B, and this is where many people are torn, because he realizes to push back some of these Islamic rebel groups, you need to be as brutal as they are. Unfortunately, others get wrapped up in these attacks. Gas doesn't, it's not a pinpoint surgical strike weapon. Well, then people said, why would Iran and Russia want to fight with the U.S.? Iran and Russia don't want to fight with the U.S. Well, of course they do. Iran and Russia are really upset because they had Obama the doormat for 8 years. But more importantly, Syria is a very strategic place. Its proximity to Israel, its proximity to seaports through Lebanon. It's a very strategic place. Now, Lebanon is basically lawless, not too hard to roll right through to the sea. And of course, they would love that strategic piece of land in the Middle East. Iran would absolutely love to have a base of operations on Israel's doorstep. Iran wants to see Israel eradicated. Iran has only upside to Bashar Assad getting into a shooting war with the U.S. If we do to Assad what we did to Saddam Hussein, what ultimately happened to Muammar Gaddafi, who's there to fill the power vacuum? Yeah, Iran, funded and enabled by Russia. So Iran only has upside to Syria getting into it with the U.S. We now know that Iran purchased the chemical weapons from Germany that were used in Syria. Now, I need a whole other show to talk about why we should have a German ambassador and how disgraceful it is that Democrats will not confirm Rick Grinnell. Maybe if we had a German ambassador in country, we could have had intelligence assets properly coordinated, diplomatic assets properly coordinated to have avoided that chemical weapons purchase. But I think now the U.S. has no choice but to get involved in Syria. Now, I'm not saying we put boots on the ground and get involved in a prolonged war. We've had special operators there now for a few years. Airstrikes, diplomatic support, economic sanctions, and a lot of intelligence capabilities put into the country. When I say a lot, I mean a ton. We need to drop case officers on the ground. We need to embed with the rebels, not the rebels who enabled ISIS, the Free Syrian Army, or Al-Qaeda. Not the bad guys. There are other groups there that just want to live better. We need to get our assets on the ground in Syria, not in terms of uniformed military in a shooting war, but we need eyes and ears. We need signals intelligence above Syria, and we need airstrikes. Now, missiles were launched into Syria last night. The U.S., the Pentagon, is denying, and Israel's being blamed. And I say, good. It's not blame. It should be a pat on the back. Israel should be launching missiles into Syria if Syria is partnering with Iran. Now, there is a whole host of other things the U.S. can do to stabilize Syria. And I'm be speaking on my longer show, Off the Cuff Declassified, right here on The Rebel later today with Jim Hansen from the Security Studies Group. They've put together a list of recommendations for the National Security Council on what the U.S.'s next move should be in Syria. Jim's going to be with me. He's going to be telling you all about it. It's going to be a great segment. You're going to want to watch the show. This is very, very important content. It's a region of the world, Syria, the Middle East, that could easily spark World War III. And I want to be able to bring you this information, this intelligence, every single day. So help me do that by subscribing to our premium service at www.therebel.media/shows.